Hello, my name is Dr. Jeff Aberle, and in this video we are going to talk about laser therapy for humans, and it can also be applied to animals. So if you're a chiropractor or a physical therapist or a medical doctor or a nurse or a veterinarian, you'll find this interesting because if you already have a laser, it's probably of this type, a continuous wave laser. And we're going to cover that in this video, and this is going to be used as a stepping stone to cover superpulse technology, which gets a lot greater depth with a lot less average output power, which means you can get deeper without the heat, which is the problem that you have with continuous wave lasers, is they just have more heat to them. And you'll see why. This is very straightforward why this works, but to see the waveforms is very helpful. Now, when we start here, I want to just note that time is along the bottom. So this is just like graph. These are three graphs. The top one here, and then this one here, and then this one here. Three different graphs: generic wave, continuous wave, and superpulse technology. But time is along the bottom, and the y-axis, the up-down axis, is power. So the higher the level here, the higher the power. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on the continuous wave laser only. And I'm going to so this is going to go out of the way. Just remember, this is still 1 second of time. I'll zoom in here a little bit. And I want you to notice that when I zoom in, I can actually see that these are on-off pulses. But I'm at 1,000 hertz. So what does 1,000 hertz mean? 1,000 hertz means 1,000 cycles per second. Now, it might be helpful to know what a cycle is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop this down to 1. And a cycle is just an on and off time. So if it's on for half a second and off for half a second, that is 1 hertz. 1 cycle per second. If I turn it to 2, that's 2 cycles per second. If I turn it to 4, that's 4 cycles. If I go to 40, that's 40 cycles per second. And if I go to 1,000, bump it all the way up, then it's 1,000. And you just can't see that on this screen unless I zoom in. So that's hertz. That's what that means, is cycles per second. Now, watts is a measurement of power. If you're at least 20 years old, you're probably familiar with a 100-watt light bulb. A 100-watt light bulb uses 100 watts of power from the power outlet in your wall. And what did it give you? Both light and heat. Watts can also be represented as joules per second. Joules is a measurement of energy, and seconds is a measurement of time. A 100-watt light bulb consumes 100 joules of energy every second, so it's written as joules per second. Watts is a measurement of power. Joules per second is also a measurement of power. Watts and joules per second are the same thing. So if this doesn't make total sense quite yet, it's okay. As you learn more about lasers, the topic will become more clear. So let's just stick with those two terms. Those are kind of the main ones for this presentation that you need to know. And we're going to be dealing with a few different wattages. We'll be dealing with total wattage and then average output wattage as well. And so let's start out with, just go down here to a reasonable frequency. Now, a lot of the lasers today have multiple lasers inside the machine. And they combine them optically, and then they come out one fiber optic cable out of the machine to a handheld piece to a lens. And then the lens is applied to the patient, either directly or hovering over a few inches or something like that. And it doesn't have to be on a movable handpiece. Some other ones are mounted on a machine that the machine either stays still or it rotates or moves in some way. But the energy has to obviously hit the person in order to do something. So the laser actually has to contact the skin, the light does, and that's the way that works. These lasers are often different wavelengths as well. So laser 1 in my example could be 635 nanometers. That would be red. Laser 2 could be an infrared frequency, and laser 3 could be another infrared frequency. So this is oftentimes 1064 nanometers. And these are just kind of numbers you just have to remember. There's only a few of them that are used in the lasers anyway. So once you kind of heard them a few times, you go, oh yeah, okay, that's familiar. I'm familiar with that. But I'm not going to make it more complicated that way. I'm just going to say laser 1, laser 2, laser 3, and we have a peak output power for each one. Now in this example, I've got laser 1, laser 2, laser 3 up here, and each one can output 15 watts maximum. So if all three of them are on full blast, then this machine could put out a maximum of 45 watts. But it's only 45 watts when it's on. When it's off, it's at 0. And so laser 1, laser 2, laser 3, that's 15 plus 15 plus 15, that's 45. So when it's on, it's putting out 45 joules per second, but when it's off, it's putting out nothing. So when you just average those two, 45 and 0, you end up getting half of that, 22.5. So I kind of hope that makes sense. It's just, it's you got to count the whole thing. It's divided by 2 because this is perfectly on for only half the time. So if I go down to 1 here, maybe it'll make more sense. So it's kicking out 45 joules per second here, but then from here, it's not kicking out anything. So it's on 45 joules for half a second, and that's why you get the 22.5, because nothing happens on when it's off. I hope that makes sense. And if I bump it to 2, it's still the same thing. It's still on for only half the time and off for half the time. And it doesn't matter what I make this, it's on half the time and off half the time, even though it's flipping on and off real quick. And the reason that it's half is because of our duty cycle. Now, most of the lasers that I've seen have a 50% duty cycle. I'm labeling it here as 0.5. So half the time it's on, half the time it's off. If I drop this down to, say, let's see here, 0.4, okay, it goes down. In fact, I can just grab the slider here and I can just drop this. And you'll see if I take it down to, let's just go down to 0.1, this is only on 1/10 or 10% of the entire cycle. So when it's on, it's still kicking out 45 watts. But when it's off for so long, the average is only 4.5 watts. So this wouldn't heat up the tissues very much at all because the average power is so low. Now what I've done here is I've made this neat little graphic to just show this a little bit. So if I put this back to 0.5 and I'm just going to bump this up to 10. And what I'll do is I'll play this. Now this is not real time, but you're going to see the laser turn on and off and on and off. Okay, so see how that works? So this is very straightforward how this works. And my software is being a little chuggy here. This kind of takes a lot of the graphics processing power. And so this is just on and off like this. Now, this is not real time. All of what you just saw should have happened within a second. But if I take this to, say, for example, 100, it's on and off much faster. But my second here is actually lasting, what, more like 6-10 seconds. I haven't counted it out. But in real time, you know, you can't see much past 50 hertz in terms of on-off times. In fact, coming out of the wall outlets of your house, it's usually running 60 hertz. Now, if you're over in Europe and overseas, it's oftentimes 50 hertz because you don't see lights flickering if the frequency is higher than 50 or 60. So lights will seem like they're on constantly, even though they are turning on and off real quick, or at least it appears that way. That you just can't tell that it's flickering. But that's alternating current. It's a little different story, but it's got a hertz value as well, on off. And so we're going to just drop this back down again. I just wanted you to see that on off time. It's kind of neat to see because you know, it just shows you that these are just on and off. And that's all they are. That's all lasers do, is they turn on and off. And you can control how much power they're putting out, right? Like I can take laser 1 and drop the power here, drop it down to 0 if I want. So just laser 2 and laser 3 are on. But now my total output power is only going to be 30 watts. If I drop the other one, whoa, you only got 15 watts as the output. So only one laser is driving the entire system, and the other 2 are off. So you have the ability to play with these in your machine. In fact, most people have the ability to play with the duty cycle. Now, they might not call it the duty cycle. They might actually call it the on and off times, but that's the same thing. If the on time and the off time are the same, that's a 50% duty cycle. And this is based also on the frequency that you're running it at. But I don't want to confuse things, but you know, you can lower and make these shorter here. So what's the advantage to making things shorter like this? Well, you have less overall heat. So you'll notice if I have this cranked at 15, 15, and 15, then when this is on, it's 45 watts. but the average power is only 11.3. So this won't heat up near as much as if it's at 0.5 duty cycle, right? That's kicking out 22.5 watts. So that's something to consider. And sometimes you want to have an area that's just really, really tight and just won't let go. And you want to let the head, the laser head, maybe sit there a little longer and not have to move it away so fast. Well, you could lower the duty cycle and get still these, the peak power or whatever the peak power your machine can put out, but you get less average power, so you don't get the heat buildup. And then you wouldn't have to move it around real quick, or you could leave it there for a little longer, or quite a bit longer than you would have at half a 50% duty cycle. So these are some of the things you can do to play around with your machine. But what I want you to notice here is that this, as you take this down, you get this less average power, but you can't really bump this up any higher than what your machine is rated at. And this machine here, 45 watts is our max. But here's the thing, is the depth that you can get is really determined by the most powerful individual laser. So you cannot take, basically let's put it this way, if this is 15 watts and this is 15 watts and this is 15 watts, the depth you can get is about 15 watts. And I know that seems confusing, but the individual laser power is what determines the depth. You can't just add them together. Yes, you're going to get a little bit more depth than 15 watts with all three of them, but it might just be just a little bit more. It's not like you're getting 45 watts worth of depth. So if it'd be better if it only had one laser in it, and that one laser could go to 45 watts by itself, then you get a lot more depth. Then you would actually get 45 watts worth of depth, whatever that is. So the higher the power of the laser, the more depth you get. That's just the way it is in physics. It's just the way it works. Now the nanometers of the lasers also determines depth. A laser that's at 1064 nanometers will get deeper than a laser that's red. It's 635 nanometers. It's just a fact of physics. It's just the way it goes. And if you go further into the infrared spectrum, say to body heat level or that of a heating pad, well, that really penetrates well. Unfortunately, at these wavelengths, there's not enough energy per photon to affect the mitochondria to get the muscle relaxation, pain relief, and regenerative effects that we're looking for. So there's a lot of factors that go into these lasers and understanding your machine. So this video is getting a little long, so I want to call it quits here, and I'm going to move on to another video and go over the super pulse concepts. But I hope this makes more sense as to kind of how these machines work and how they work under the hood, and so I hope this has been valuable for you. Again, my name is Dr. Jeff Aberle. Feel free to comment anything you want down in the comment box. I'll try to get back to you on that. And if you ever have any questions on this stuff, or you're looking at buying a laser, give me a call. I've been through 7 different lasers. Well, I guess 6 different lasers. I did buy 2 of the same one at one point. But I've been through a lot of different lasers out there and sold them all except for 2 of them, which are both super pulse lasers. And there's a huge advantage to them. So I will show that in the next video. So stick around, and you're going to get to see some really neat stuff. A trick of physics that it really changes the way laser therapy can be. And so we'll go from there. Again, my name is Jeff Aberle, and thanks for watching.